Mike, we are live today.
We are live. Welcome to Perspective Shift.
Yes, I wasn't live yesterday, but I'm live today.
Hanging in there.
Yes. Yeah.
How are you doing, Frank?
I'm doing really well, man.
Good week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always a good week.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's
I
exciting.
just lie to myself if it's not. So
Hey,
that's what the game is.
change of perspective, man. That's what we're here for.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I just, if I'm lying to myself, it means I need to change my perspective.
Right? It's
Yeah.
it was a nice, cold, rainy morning, winter morning in Arizona.
Yeah.
Winter rain.
And I know people in Minnesota are like, what the hell are these guys talking about winter?
Seriously,
To
man.
those followers out in Minnesota. All right. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
We wear a sweater in the winter.
Yeah, stay warm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's I was gonna say that's the fun part about living in Arizona is we don't have any of the horrible weather that we got to deal with. We just have what's it called, the heat.
Oh, in the summer, yeah.
Yeah,
Which it doesn't bother me at all.
no, I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
So yeah, all right. There's not much contrast
That's
in
for sure.
Arizona. Yeah. Oh shit.
Keeps it fresh.
It does, man. All right. So
What do you think we're gonna be getting into in this week's episode?
well,
What's
yeah.
the plan?
I don't know if we have a plan. I never have a plan. So let's well, here we are at the end of the year because I think we have a gentleman on next week, and then
We do.
We're wrapping up the year after that. So let's talk about just you and I. Let's just get into it. Like
I love
so over the last year, between all the teachers and the conversations we had and stuff we've read about, like what have we gained from that? Like what knowledge have you gained?
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place.
So how
for
much
us
has
to
your
start.
perspective shifted in the last year of 2020, or even just in life? It's narrow it down to 2020, but
Well, a lot.
Yeah.
It was funny. I saw a quote, I think it was like yesterday or the day before, and it was something like, if you looked back at or if you saw yourself 5 years ago today, you'd be so proud of yourself. And that rang really true to me.
unless you're in prison.
that for sure. But
Well, that's
I read that
for
quote,
you.
and that was
Yeah.
so powerful
Yeah.
because I was like, fuck, I was like, this is so true. Like
Yeah.
if I did look back at my life 5 years ago, this is exactly where I'd want to be.
All right.
And
Well,
that was a good feeling.
What led you to that point to where you can be proud of yourself?
Well, I mean, honestly, doing the real work, and what I mean by the real work is, every year, you come to this point towards the end of the year where you decide to just kind of check out and get comfortable, and you kind of ride into the next year, and you're like, oh yeah, you take your foot off the gas, you allow yourself to stay comfortable. It's like, I don't need to do much. Okay, top of the year, that's when I'm going to do this. Or I'll start doing that in the next year. And it's always that future, never full commitment type of thing. And
Okay, actually, like, why do you think? Because we all do that, but why do you think we do that? Like, why do you think we just tap out?
Because a justified grievance, if you will. I've worked so hard this year. I deserve, to check out. I deserve, this.
Because I look at it like we check out because we're tired, and why are we tired? It has nothing to do with work. It has to do with mental
exhaustion.
Yeah, mental exhaustion.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of the principles that we discuss here in exercise keep you from getting exhausted. So tapping out is not something you want to do. It's like leaving Disneyland as a kid, like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You just simply wouldn't do it. You're just like, what am I doing?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, for me, it's I don't know. It's a different way of looking at things. Rather than getting, it's so easy to allow yourself to push things off and say, okay, I'll take care of that later, tomorrow, next week, next year. And what I've really understood about, or really learned from a lot of the different teachers, and spiritual leaders and stuff that we've researched this year and talked about is that tomorrow never comes. That
It's
tomorrow
only now,
is fictitious, or fictitious, I should say.
I like fictitious.
It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist, and so what you want to implement, you just simply are. You be it. It's today. It's now. It's in this moment, and so rather than push things off or do something. I'm taking each day and living in that moment. And that's always been something very difficult for me because I don't know, I've always been planning like what's next, what's to come, etc. Another big thing for me this year that I have not done in previous years was goal setting. I never really knew what it meant to set a goal. In fact, I kind of like looked at it like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to write these goals down. I didn't look at it. I had no belief behind it. And the reason I didn't have belief behind it was I didn't know how I was going to attain those goals. And so for me, it didn't make sense to write down a list of goals because I didn't know how to get there.
Now, what process do you use now to attain those goals?
Well, now I let go. Now I trust that, hey, I set my intention and I allow the world around me, this reality, to conform to my goal. And like, I guess when I did not know how to achieve a goal, I thought I could not accomplish that goal.
It's because you try to figure it out, right?
Well,
like most
that's
people.
it. Well,
That's what I used to do.
That's it. And so what I realized is it's not about knowing how to accomplish the goal. It's simply setting the goal and moving into the unknown.
Now, what does setting the goal look like for you? Like,
Well, for me, I mean,
do
setting
you write it down? How do you like?
Well, so I've got mental goals, but yes, I do write it down because I feel like that helps bring it to life, and it's also something that I'll review. Like I'll review it in the morning, or at night before bed. And I know what I'm doing. I'm planting that subconscious seed. I'm planting a seed within my subconscious about what and who and whatever I'd like to experience. And so what I've learned this year, and last year, in the year before this, but what's really sunk in this year is you don't need to know how you're going to achieve the goal. You just need to set the goal, and then you move into the unknown. And it's from there that things truly spontaneously happen and begin to align with this mental picture that you have. It's not so much the doing. And my whole life, I thought it was the doing. I thought I had to get out and do A, B, and C in order to accomplish or C, D, Like everything was a linear perspective. That doesn't exist. This linear model that exists if that's how you live your life.
It's a construct.
Exactly. If you wish to live in that type of experience, you'll find that. But you don't have to. And I guess what I'm saying there is I've realized that I am a multi-dimensional being and that it doesn't need to be happening in this linear time that we view life, as human beings. This is our perspective and what we've been taught, to follow time and in the years and how all this works. But past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously. It's all where this consciousness, where this awareness goes is what I experience. And so that's been real big. Like those are two very major themes for me personally throughout this year.
Now, when you set a goal, do you set a timeline or a gestation to where it has to come in to know if it's working or not?
No, yeah. So yes and no. Some goals, I like year-end goals. Like so, I set a goal this year. For example, in real estate, I work in real estate, and I told myself, okay, this is going to be my best year in real estate yet. So there, I've got a goal. Within this year, it's going to be that best year. It's going to be my most productive year in business. So I do set goals like that. And then there's other goals that I'll set, just about my role, whether that's a leadership role, whether that's, a relationship goal, whether that's a goal with my family, friends, whatever. Yeah. Those I don't necessarily set a timeline on. But I do think having a timeline is valuable. Because, how
do you choose your timeline? Like, I know a lot of people ask it, because they set a timeline, and if it doesn't happen in that time, they start to panic or they give up on the goal. That's why I think
that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Talking about New Year's resolutions, a lot of people get to it, they write them out, and then by March they're done.
Yeah,
you're talking 2-3 months into the year, and they're done because they've given up.
Yeah.
And what do you think the mindset is? Like, what's the mindset for you that doesn't allow you to give up, to keep going?
I would say it's faith. Faith,
Right.
faith. So I really understood
how
what
do you-
faith meant this year
Yeah.
too.
So what?
And so that was a big thing.
Define faith as you define faith.
Well, I guess faith for me is a knowing. And what I mean by that is, like, we've been taught that faith is kind of like hope, and that we're supposed to, just hope for the best. But faith really isn't that. Faith is, I'm trying to think of like a good example of faith.
Well, I think you said it's knowing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's absolutely knowing.
Because I've come to understand that every human being on this planet has faith.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, what is our faith in?
That's a great
If
way
I
to
have
describe
faith that the
it.
day's going to be shitty, I'm going to get evidence to it. So faith is something that, people talk about. You need to have faith. I'm like, every human being has faith. But what am I laying my faith in the perspective in which I want to experience, or something that the world tells me that's going to happen to me, and I'm going to buy into it. And when I buy into it and it happens, I'm like, oh shit, they were right.
I knew
type
it.
of thing. So that's 100% faith in somebody else's lineage or somebody else's storyline that you actually bought into, and then it becomes hard fact, and like, man.
Well, I like that you bring up storyline, because that's the thing, is when you realize that that we are storytellers. Plain and simple, that's what we are. We are storytellers. And what we do is we tell ourselves a story each and every day, over and over, in our heads. And we call this mental chatter. We call it the ego. We call it, ourselves. Some people still identify with this voice in the head, and they think that's them,
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the Western world is at. We have all these thoughts running around, and we are unable to disconnect or detach
Or change
from
the
thoughts.
story.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever. It
We
doesn't
think
matter.
we can't change the story. We think changing the story
Yeah.
is not real. We think changing the story is delusional. We think changing the story is lying to ourselves.
Well, to some level, like, it's funny because to some level there is a truth to that. Somebody did a study on this, which is interesting. They took people, and it was in a workplace where they were doing self-evaluation. And the people that were 100% accurate on the self-evaluation, where the strengths or the weaknesses were, that were what we call completely honest, never grew in their profession. The people that slightly embellished, if you overly embellish, you can't back it up. But people that slightly embellished always grew. And that's why the people that were brutally honest always created animosity within the field in which they were in, because they said this is how it is. And you actually always want to break forth into what we call the present future moment and change who you are now, even if who you are now is doing well. Mm-hmm. You always, just like if I'm eating a meal now, I know by this afternoon I'll be eating another meal, so to speak, in this analogy. Mm-hmm. So, but if I'm trying to just state fact, this is all I can do. All of a sudden, this moment passes, now I starve myself to death, because I don't want to go beyond that point. And then I'm back in the past and all this stuff. And so and that's why it's always this nice thing. I could look at the world, and guess I'm looking at the world now based on a perception I grabbed onto, whether it was given to me by the world or the news or whoever. And then I could alter that perception and then turn myself or transmute the energy in my body to feel this is how it is. And then I start to see the evidence to it. Because we are evidence-based people. Mm-hmm. So, but how did the people that discover things, what evidence did they have before this?
When you say discover things, what do you mean?
Like Einstein.
Yep.
He discovered E equals MC squared, understanding relativity. And because of that equation, look at all the technology and the way we live came from that. Where did he come up with that?
Well, I'm pretty sure I heard him say this, but he pulled that from the field, and he talks about it.
Yeah.
Einstein,
but it was his imagination.
That's it.
And that's one of his famous quotes, his imagination is far greater than knowledge.
Well, yeah, he also says, the analytical mind or the thinking mind, it can take you from A to Z. Or I believe the quote is, logic can take you from A to Z, but imagination can take you everywhere.
Well, imagination is what created A to Z.
That's it.
Without A to Z, you had nothing.
And so imagination, you know, you can call it imagination, you can call it God, you can call it higher self, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
That's that level of consciousness, that awareness, that's what sparks and creates this experience that we call real.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people think the world outside of them is just happening randomly. They think that no matter what, you know, without their awareness or consciousness there, the world's just happening around them. And it is, and it's at random. There's no participation from the consciousness or from the observer, I should say. And science, you know, has proven this to be false. We very much absolutely have an effect as an observer on what we're observing.
But at the same time,
we're collapsing the particles literally from wave into particle through observation.
Yeah, in quantum physics science, they've proven that. But in Newtonian physics, they've proven the opposite.
Yeah, and I see
so it's kind of
so
it's like there's no right or wrong here. It's just which storyline, or do you want to gravitate to storyline? Do you want to reiterate a story that's been given to you, or do you want to come up with a new story that's out in the field that you're actually generating through your imagination?
And that's kind of where I was going with the storyteller stuff. Is there's all these narratives out there. There's a narrative about you, your culture, who you are, that's been given to you from your family, or maybe from your friends. So you have this story of who you are individually. And then there's a storyline of what's going on like globally and internationally and in this world. A storyline of what's going on with our economy, where we're at, etc. And we choose to participate in these storylines.
Yeah, and even biologists say it's in your DNA.
Oh.
It's in your genes, I should say. So, and that's another story.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the opposite side, you then have the quantum physicists and even new biologists now talking about the epigenetics, where, yes, you do have a genetic makeup, but you can then change it through the way you think or the way you feel, because thought and feeling, if you want to correlate those together, will change then the genome in your body.
See, that's a great one too, because people my whole life, we've all been told, oh, you got bad genes, you got good genes. Oh, I get this from my mom, I get this from my dad. And, there's truth to that. But what science has discovered, like what Frank's talking about with Bruce Lipton through epigenetics, is what we thought, like, cancer, oh, you got that cancer gene. Sure, that cancer gene may exist, but our level of awareness, our level of focus, where we put our attention, can up-regulate and change gene sequences, patterns, etc. We are not victims of our genes. And that's been proven. That's a scientific fact for you. But on the other side, there's proof and factual information that supports that our genes do, play a role in what type of sicknesses we get, or how our body types are, etc. All this.
But even the opposite
what
side.
What do you choose is what I've realized is what matters.
But
and it's from there.
Yeah, but even the opposite side of what we call, how do we look at it, still proves what we're talking about works. Because if you think you're going to hell in a handbag by the end of the day, all of a sudden you come home and you're like, oh my God, the day was a hell of a day.
Yep.
And so that we gain factual proof. So what is fact? Fact is perception onto the setting in which you're in, and the universe will always give you evidence to support the way you feel about stuff. And that's what I've learned over my lifetime.
Yeah.
So now it's like, how do I keep my focus on not buying into I'll get sick or I'll do this or do that? And one of the things I'm really working on, actually, I hit, and some days I don't, but is indifference.
Okay.
But from a high level, and because I mentioned the word indifference to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, you're apathetic." I'm like, I am far from apathetic. I'm like, I get up in the morning and I go. I love it like when I was 10 years old on the summer break, and not every day, because the days I get caught up, and when the days I don't, I get caught up, and I'm like, okay, no big deal, I get out of it, but I know I have tools and technique to get me back on track. but over time, it's easier for me to stay on track than to get off a track because I worked at that discipline. Where before, I was given information and it worked out sometimes, but not all the time. But I never felt I actually had control over that information. But the truth is, I did. My control was buying into it. My control was, oh, yep, they're right. This is as good as it's going to get for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so why go any further? Now, if it was true that this is as good as it's going to get for me, I wouldn't struggle. I'd be okay, it's fine. But I struggle because there was something in me that says, "Are you kidding me? You're tapping out now?
Mm-hmm.
You're 15. You know, like, you got a long way to go, buddy."
Yeah, exactly.
And
good luck.
yeah, so and like, but over the years, and that's why I don't know if it's my age or the amount of experience I had as I start to understand this. Also, too, me being very curious at a young age, diving into stuff. And a lot of times when I dove into it, I was pushing it away. I was like, I would read the book. I'm like, this guy's full of shit.
Yeah.
But yet I read the book.
Yeah.
Then I read it again to see how much full of shit I realized. I'm going to read it again. This guy's really full of shit, son of a bitch.
My second time through, even more so.
It's funny because I remember when I wrote my book,
Yeah.
I remember this was probably 7-8 years ago. And, you put it out there and all of a sudden you're getting these reviews and they're all really good reviews and pretty much just bland. Like, oh, it's a great book. I enjoyed reading it. I gave one to my so-and-so. And then I get this review from this guy and he's like, who the hell does this guy think he is?
Really?
Yeah. And I was laughing because even though I was like, wow, that was weird. But then again, I'm like, I was that dude.
Yeah.
I was that dude that didn't know. I was short-minded, but yet at the same time, there was something there I wanted to learn, but I was unwilling to give up a perception in my life to go so far. It was painful. So then I had to lash out. Now, I didn't write any reviews because this was years ago and there was no way to write them. And
no platform
but this guy wrote it, and when he did, I'm like, it hit me for a second, but then I'm like, wow, I was that dude.
Mm-hmm.
I was that guy I was trying to, because you want this information to be true. Everyone does, but they don't believe it. I'm like, but what you're believing in actually validates that it's true. It's just your faith isn't something you don't want to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Where when your faith isn't congruent, moving in the direction in which you want to experience, it's what we call heaven. So if you want to head west, you got to head west. It's simple, but all of a sudden you get distracted by patterns of heading east or south or north that take you away from west. And it's not that the west doesn't have what you want. It's just that you can't seem to be focused. So you're like, you know what? I'm just going to aimlessly go through life. And I'm like, all right, do that for a while. Let's see what happens. And you do that for a couple of years, and all of a sudden it's like there's no fulfillment in that.
A lot of people are stuck in that.
Yeah,
I
was stuck in it for a while. You go from
but
one.
you react to the world rather than respond. You're a background character.
Yeah, you're a background character in your own story, which is even odd.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you just go from one distraction to the next. One this vacation, going out to dinner, go to a party and do this. So all these things will distract you from what's really going on inside, underneath in the depths of who we are, in the shadow self, however you want to call it. Now, when you start to tackle it, doesn't mean you don't go out to dinner. It doesn't mean you don't go on vacation. It brings a whole different perspective onto it. So you still, on the surface, people still see you, but then they look at you like, oh, there's something different here. I'm like, yeah.
I'm aware.
I'm aware that I have control of the direction in which my mind allows me to go, rather
Correct.
than it being controlled or it's limited. And we are unlimited beings, but I'm limited in this moment in order to create the grand limitation or unlimited value. So I understand the yin and the yang of the world. Like, in order to have unlimited amount of football games, you still have to have a limitation of a football field by 50 by 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And a limited amount of time, a limited amount of downs you can have. That creates the unlimited ability to play the game. So now I'm aware of that. So I'm no longer trying to get rid of the obstacles. I'm like, what does this obstacle teach me? I'm like, okay, bring it on. So then I go in and I start to grind, but not in a suffering way, in a brilliant way. Like a kid. Like when I was a kid, me and my friends, we did this in my backyard. We, had a big oak tree in my backyard,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how many years been there, probably like 50 years by that time. And we would climb it, and then one day we're like just bored, so hey, let's see who can climb to the top and stick your head out of the canopy. So you go up, and it takes a while because you can run up the tree to mid-tree, but then all of a sudden you get in the branches swing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going up a little further, branch swing, you grab two branches, okay, it's a little more sturdy. Next thing you know, I hear, boom, and I hit the ground.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I hit the ground. But that didn't stop me from doing it again. I didn't do it that day. I lost my wind. But then I learned something. Like, okay, how far can I go out? And then I realized I've never sucked my head out of a canopy because the the leaves are like, the branches are like this weak at the top. There's no. Unless it became a butterfly, it's not going to happen. Or I shouldn't say that. I'm bad if someone did it. But I didn't go beyond that point. But there was something natural as I always wanted to expand and go up. But we were studying the tree without knowing we were studying it. And it was our imagination, like, what would it be like to stick your head out, and look, So I remember getting as high as a tree and pushing the canopy away, and I saw a viewpoint I've never seen before. And it was amazing. And then going down was like, holy shit, I don't want to fall again.
Yep.
And then like slowly going down, this very methodical. But what that did is it created such great consciousness in me as a child. But I didn't set the goal the night before. I didn't write it down. But what I did is the night before, there was generated excitement to what I'm going to do tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Unless it was a school day. Then I was like, shit.
Yep.
That's why. Again, these are how I look at it. So now it's like, obviously me and Mike are here talking about this, so I love to learn, but I'm on my own trajectory with that. And even sometimes I'm put in a position where I'm forced to learn more information now, and I'm like, stop that. Like, that's going to stop the neural pathways for actually receiving the information. Yep. So now I have techniques that can get me into that place where I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun.
We'll share a couple of those techniques.
Oh, the ultimate technique I have is it's just me talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is all an illusion. The only reality is my consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm looking at what's happening, even in the physical world, like, you look at anything, like it's raining out. I broke my foot. I'm like, well, I'm not lying. I broke my foot. But the truth is my foot's going to heal. And then I could tell a storyline. Well, your foot broke because you have to work on something else. Maybe we just too much focus on this, right? And I'm telling the story. There's no empirical truth to it. But I learned to tell the story that works in the benefit to where I'm at rather than saying giving up, this always happens. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I put my attention elsewhere, and actually what happens, I've never broken my foot, so I don't know why you used that analogy, but when something painful came up, or like I felt tired one day, that happens a lot. Like sometimes, like, I wake up in the morning tired, and Karen would be like, you overworked it yesterday. I'm like, no, I didn't. I just woke up tired. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it had nothing to do with overworking, because what, I'm going to stop? Mm-hmm. No. And in that conversation, because I got a little defensive, fucking energy came back.
Yeah, right.
Jumped in the cold shower. And I'm like, thanks for pointing it out for me, hon.
Yep.
Yeah. And she's like, don't work too hard. I'm like, I got this.
Yeah.
She worries about me all day. Because it's like me going to the top of a tree and breaking the branch and falling out. But what it is when you're moving forth into this dynamic of doing it, you remaining conscious. I was so focused on wanting to be the first kid to stick my head out of the canopy, I became unconscious in that moment. Yeah. And that's what happened. But when it was like, I want to experience this joyful moment, I'd stay conscious, and that didn't happen the second time. Although I never made it to get my head out of the canopy, but I was pretty damn close.
Yeah.
So other practices, obviously breathing techniques.
Well, hold on real quick. I love that you bring that point up, because that's something I saw this year a lot in myself was, okay, I understand that the thoughts in my head are a story, and I'm the narrator of this story. So I'd have stuff playing out, but I would ask myself, okay, is this a destructive or a constructive story that I'm telling myself? Is this story serving me and in the direction I want to go, and that I'm putting my energy and focus in, or am I reacting a narrative, that I don't like? Is this a limiting belief, or is this a belief that's going to allow me to grow? And I would change the narrative depending on that. And that comes from a level of awareness. Are you able to observe, okay, hey, look, I understand this is what I'm thinking right now. Are these thoughts serving me, or are these thoughts hold me back or keeping me stuck?
And there's a level we like in the in this new understanding of consciousness, we like to call it a deeper level. It's just a different level. You could call it deeper level. When you're actually looking to better yourself or elevate yourself, one of the best techniques I've learned is, how is my elevation going to help the world or those around me? And I don't do the world thing. It's just too overwhelming.
Yeah.
How is it going to help my family? Yep. How is it going to help my business?
Yeah.
How is it going to help my neighborhood? And so, because a lot of times people will sometimes just put an intention just to help themselves, and they'll do whatever it takes to get there, and usually is some type of monetary gain or physical gain, and they'll do whatever they need to do to get it, and they end up wrecking the neighborhood in which they live, and they eventually suffer the consequence of that. So it's about stepping back, and one of the best ways of elevating myself and getting out of it is stop making it about myself. And when I stop making it about myself, I'm entangled into it, and it then helps me. I never want to be a martyr. I never want to do stuff like, oh, look at all the work I do and no one appreciates it. I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
But when I take myself out of the equation, that's another technique I do. Okay, if I'm not feeling good, is this going to help my business? Is it going to help my conversation with Karen? No, it's not. So if I was living by myself, I could just sit in misery and no one's going to give a shit. I'm not going to argue with myself. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, no, I got a family. I got a business to run. I got things I have to do. I got a podcast to go. I'm like, so do I want to sit in misery? No, it's not going to help anybody. And all of a sudden I start thinking about other people. I'm like, they don't deserve a miserable Frank.
Absolutely.
But
it's good that you laugh about that. Like,
yeah,
that is a character. So you're seeing the character.
Yeah.
They don't deserve a miserable Frank, this identity of Frank, it's created. It's a self-identity. And so when we can kind of detach from that and look at and laugh at that,
it's true.
It creates that separation, that space.
Yeah, the miserable Frank is like the Tasmanian devil. The indifferent Frank is Bugs Bunny with a carrot, like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on today? What are you doing there? I'm searching for a Willy Rabbit. It's like, really? What's a rabbit look like? Oh, you got
totally.
And all of a sudden you look, and I start to play this in my head, and all of a sudden I lighten up and realize the thought that came in that I gravitated or pulled to, that was pulling me down, was an old pattern of thinking of not worthiness. That's all it was. It wasn't like a spell. It was a spell that I cast upon myself years ago for buying into it. All right. So that's where all the spell stuff comes from. I understand it. It's another narrative to tell it. How do I overcome the spell? We'll recognize it was a spell.
Well, I like that you bring up spell, because I've heard a couple things. I've heard spell come from spelling. You're literally talking into existence what you want. But like we were talking about before we jumped on, this gentleman I was listening to yesterday, it was like a TED Talk. He was a magician, and he was talking about like how impactful magic was in his awakening process. And what he was getting at was, he never knew this, but he began to study magic, and everybody's heard the phrase abracadabra, like, oh yeah, the trick, abracadabra. But what he started to explain was, he went back and researched where this word came from, abracadabra. And he realized, oh my goodness, this is a Arabic word.
Abraic,
from an Aramaic word, which is before Hebrew. We're talking, this is like the language of, like Jesus' time, if you will.
Well, Hebrew was before Jesus, but
was it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
or Aramaic?
Yeah, Jesus was born a Jew.
Okay.
So, but the Bible, most of it was written in Arabic.
Okay,
in
so
Arabic, yeah.
So he
not Arabic, but
no, I know what you mean. Aramaic, right?
Yeah, Aramaic.
Yeah. What he said is, this word is translated into what I speak is what I create. And abracadabra means what I speak is what I create.
That's why whatever follows abracadabra is what you're going to find.
And that like really turned on a light bulb for me. When I was listening to that, I was just like, God, this is so true. What we constantly speak into this world, comes to fruition. And you'll see this all over the place, guys. I remember this one quote from John Lennon is like, my grandma used to always say, when you're sick, never talk about how you're sick, talk about how you're healing, because words do manifest. And
John Lennon said that?
yeah, John Lennon was talking about his grandma.
Oh, really?
His grandma used to tell him, like, hey, look.
Imagine that.
Yeah. but seriously, like, there are so many examples of this throughout history about where we put our attention, what we allow to ourselves to buy into, what we allow ourselves to believe is what comes to fruition. And so when you have full faith and knowing of this and how this works, this is how you begin to step into your power as a creator, and it allows you to take hold of your reality. Because if you're just responding and reacting, to what things are told to you by the exterior world outside of you, you're not making any decisions of your own. You're living within the fictitious matrix game, whatever you want to call this, that we call reality. It's not until you go, whoa, 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 my awareness, my observation changes how I see this world and what I experience and who I run into and who I interact with. A lot of us don't believe that. We think that no matter what, these series of events are going to happen, whether or not we have a mental observation, awareness, or input on it. And again, that it's been proven we do. We are actively participating in this world, and so that's the biggest hurdle to this whole awareness type of stuff, is knowing, like, hey, where I put my intention, where I put my thoughts, what I focus on, what I buy into, that's what's real.
Yeah.
And what do you want to buy into?
Yeah, what I've come to know is early on when I was listening to how this should be and how I should feel about it, I wasn't invested in life. So I've come to know that I no longer spend time, spend money. I invest time, I invest money. Everything I do is an investment. Yeah. It's not like this strict discipline. It's a very easy discipline. But everything I do, like even if I go to the gym, right? And, I'm at the gym a lot, so.
Yeah. Daily, right?
That's why they call me Frank Daly. All right, else.
But
yeah. So a lot of times I'll go in the gym and my intention will be like, okay, I got to work out. I can't talk to anyone. Well, here all of a sudden that's self-serving. It really is. And people are like, well, you have the right to do that. But all of a sudden, that's the day when everyone comes up and talks to me. And then there's a thing that clicks in my head. I'm like, I could sit here and get aggravated and destroy this conversation, or I just say, fuck it. Mm-hmm. And I get into conversation, and that's when I run into the most magnificent people or find stuff out. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't going to the gym to do an arm workout, although I did. I still got it in. I was there to learn something else. So now when I go to the gym, it's just to feel good and to push myself beyond the limit in which I did yesterday. And so heading into like slight discomfort and to feel good. So if that's the case, getting into a conversation when I have to work out is slightly discomfort. I'm like, all right, the universe gave me what I wanted. And it wasn't a failure. It was a misreading on my part. Because we always say, I'm going to the gym, this is how it's going to be. I imagine it this way. And if we do not loosen up or let go of the insistence on how, we'll always crumble. Because when I invest in something, the outcome is always going to be favorable to me, but we have to stop looking at, like, I'm like, I want a 10% return. And if I got a 9% return, I'm pissed. I'm like, seriously, you're pissed on a 9% return? Well, I expected a 10. It didn't work. This hocus pocus shit didn't work. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's just crazy. If you got a 1% return over and above what you had, I'm like, that's something, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't get a loss. And I start looking at life that way. So I'm slowing down my insistence on how it works out. I still got caught up in it. I don't want to say I'm human, because that's a cop-out. I get distracted. And, because me and Mike are doing the show, we do a lot of reading. And I start reading stuff. And sometimes a certain person, they have great value in an area, but then they'll pull you into a story. And I'm like, oh, this is how it is. I'm like, well, they're using this analogy. And whether they are or not, tell that to myself, so it allows me to go through the material, and because I don't want to judge. I'm like, I'm not judging anyone, because once I judge, I'm the one. Now I got a problem, because that's a concept within me. So then somewhere inside, I'm judging myself. But yeah, now I'm like, okay, I have to change that. But once I say I have to do this, I have to do it, and it has to be done this way, that's when life gets tricky.
And that's when life gets hard. When something has to be done a certain way, I have to do this number of things in order to accomplish this. Then it's laborious. Then it's a grind.
Yeah.
Then it's I must do this.
What is it? Dr. Joe Dispenza said that's matter over matter.
Yeah, it's a totally different way to look at it.
Rather than using energy to create matter.
Yeah. And you don't need to put this is how it needs to flow, or this is how it has to happen. You can literally set that goal and allow it to unfold. And oh my God, you'll be blown away by how it unfolds, because that's the cool part, is when you really set the intention and you begin to move into the unknown, things that we would call magic or miracles begin to happen. And that's what's exciting. And it's funny because I look around, at like the world and what's shown in the news and our stories that we get to our phones and all this stuff, and everything is extremely, fearful or negative or bad. There is 10 times, 100 times an enormous amount more of amazing things happening every moment of every day. Like miracle upon miracles are happening all around us at all times. In fact, like I don't even want to put a number on it, because it's so much more than the negative. But we put the negative under a microscope, and we put the negative on a loudspeaker, into our homes, through the news.
But when we start to understand why that is, why do we recognize the negative more than the positive?
There's an element of control. There's a lot.
The reason is because it's very little.
Yeah.
In other words, if I went in here and just took a circle with a Sharpie and put a little dot on the wall, you'd be looking at that dot, not the rest of the clean wall.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So there's nothing wrong with that. So we're looking at what's wrong with the picture. All right. But when you look at it in a fearful, like, oh my God, for one, you're not going to have the energy.
Dot's going to grow.
Yeah, dot's going to grow. Where it's like, oh, there's a dot up there, and like, I'll just paint it later and go back to your day. People get so fixated on the dot, then all of a sudden they don't see the rest of the wall. And why even paint it? It's just going to come back. And that's so when it's not that we're advocating not to listen to the news, but don't get caught up in it, because all the stuff that's happening, why is the news presenting it? Because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage of things happening. Because if it was happening all the time, we wouldn't be talking about it.
But that's the thing. We hear like, oh, we're the most divided we've ever been, all sorts of stuff. And we're not.
Listen.
In fact, we're more inclusive than we've ever been. But we've got to throw the other narrative out there. Like, it's funny, when we were talking this morning, you mentioned something. I forgot what we were talking about, but it's like, how do you know? Like, so for example, it's Christmas time right now, right? So not so much last year, or not so much this year, but like last year, the last couple of years, one of these like talking points has been this war on Christmas, right? Like, oh, the war on Christmas. Like, you can't even say Christmas anymore. These liberals, these woke, like, that's like been a narrative, right? But everywhere, in your neighborhood or any place you go, people are saying Merry Christmas. People are having a good time. But you find that one person that maybe says Happy Holidays or something else.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. This is a war on Christmas. And we've been like fed this BS line, when in reality, like, it couldn't be further from the truth. There never was a war on Christmas. There never has been. And when you're talking amongst your friends and stuff, and who you interact with and involved with, you don't experience that until you verbalize it or bring it up. Like, oh, can you believe what's going on? This war on Christmas. Well, everybody there is, celebrating Christmas. And so it's kind of funny to see how we're fed these lines, and then we believe them to be real, even though we're not experiencing them. And so we like go out into the world and we're like, oh yeah, there's this a war on Christmas. They're trying to take Christmas. No, they're not. No one is trying to take Christmas away from anybody. You know what I mean? But we're told this narrative, and so we we act it out and we play it out, and I'm picking up on that, and these are all meant to divide us, you know.
Well, we're playing that in our head because I understand the narrative of Christmas because as this country changes, I don't know what the population of Christians are because now it's other religions. So if you're Islam and you walk around all day, you practice in Islam, and you're Muslim and you see Christmas all the time, it's like, why doesn't anyone do this? But a lot of times, and I don't know, I haven't heard perspective from a Muslim. I don't know if they really care because I'm sure they were used to it. It's almost like these people are trying to go out of the way to like not hurt other people's feelings via Muslim, Jewish, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but to some degree that could be slightly insulting to the group of people you're trying to not do. And a lot of times these narratives of protection come from people that aren't even in those groups, which is very weird because they start to, it's insulting saying, don't worry, I'll help you out.
Yeah,
you're like, I don't need your help. Just stay the hell out of my face.
Totally.
But yet then there's another part of it becoming consciously aware. It's like, okay, inviting people to my house. Well, this person doesn't celebrate Christmas. So this brings a consciousness to me to say, okay, I bring it up, so not to lay into it. Like, it's almost like if I'm around a buddy of mine that's not doing well financially, I don't mention how much money I have.
Totally.
And because I'm conscious of it, it doesn't do that person any good. And I don't need to talk about that. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it doesn't come up, but I'm conscious about it. All right. But then if I get to a point where I can't buy a new car or put an extension house because my friend would be upset, I'm like, now I'm getting lost in it.
Yep.
There's this place of like, okay, now you're being ridiculous. You got to live your life. And there's a way of talking about abundance. And if somebody gets upset, well, that's on them. But there's a way about bragging about abundance. So a lot of these changes, whether it's Christmas or the pronoun thing, what it does, it gives us ample opportunity for each individual to become more conscious.
Yeah.
Don't get sucked into it, but be aware of it. I'm like, okay, I'm aware of it. And I see somebody, I'm like, okay. And I think most people are. When they see somebody that, okay, looks like they transitioned or transitioning, and you present them that way. You don't get upset. But everyone's talking about it. But when you're talking about amongst your friends, I'm like, I can't believe we have to go through this shit. I'm like, what? I'm like, we've been going through shit since we were kids. All right.
Totally.
I'm like, this is what life is, and it's not shit. It's consciousness. We think we want to be so comfortable. Like you said, by the end of the year, we could just play it out. We don't, like, you're in a baseball game, you're freaking 9 up, and you're in the 7th inning, and just go to sleep, and all of a sudden and the ball goes out of the park, and there's 4 guys coming around, like, shit.
Yep.
All of a sudden, that's how life is. You don't want to finish the game in the 7th inning because you think you're so far ahead. You got to stay conscious right to the end. If not, it's gonna happen with the 86 World Series and. When Mets beat Boston, it was brutal.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, 7th game. They
Dude.
came back. They were losing. And the people from Boston, I remember I was at Chase Stadium. I think I told you that story. I snuck into the game.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies were selling T-shirts, and this kid comes up, and I don't know why he did this. He had like 15 tickets in his hand, we're at a small gate. It's a shorter gate. We just finished selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
And he goes up, and he has them, and he hands them to the guy checking the tickets, and he's like, I got here's 15 tickets. My friends are behind me. And the guy's like, whoa, who are your friends? He's like, have them raise a hand. So I grabbed my buddy. We just stuck our hands up. We got in.
Oh,
got in the game. Probably 2 dudes never made it to the game.
I was gonna say 2 people never get in.
I apologize for those 2 dudes. Never made it to the
we got this listener in Boston's like, holy shit,
son
that
of
happened
a
to me.
motherfucker! Yeah, because I think they must have been from Boston.
My 2 buddies didn't get in because of you.
It doesn't. Hey, if you didn't get in, you were better off if you were from Boston anyway, because it was horrible. I've seen grown men crying.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, it was funny because me and a friend had nowhere to sit.
Over a fun game.
Well, the thing was, if you look at the history,
it's what we identify with.
Yeah, by this time, Boston hadn't won a World Series since like Babe Ruth was on their team, which is like years ago.
Yeah.
And then when he got traded to the Yankees, there was this animosity between mainly, when I say Boston, it was always the Yankees, not the Mets. But Mets are in New York. So, and then for them to come this close, the 7th game, they were up.
Yeah.
And then, boom, the Mets pulled it off. It was what's his name? Darryl Strawberry. was on the team. It was an amazing year for the Mets. But it was funny because to me, I swear to God, I was indifferent. I really didn't care. I was just there to make money to sell T-shirts. I lost my love for baseball when I was like, 12, 13 years old. Like I went to Shea Stadium all the time, played, Dave Kingman was the era when I watched baseball and stuff. But as time get on, I was like, yeah. I'm like, I was more into girls than following baseball. So,
Yep.
But I was like, oh, cool, we won. Let's go home. I'm like, why are these dudes crying over here? Like I never seen a grown man crying.
Grown man crying over here.
Yeah. Shit. Where the hell we go on a tangent?
That's seriously awesome, though. Well, no. It's tangents like that that help us circle around everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what, like, if I had to put, like, my finger on something that was, like, a huge breakthrough for me this year, too, or just, like, a moment of realization, that's helping me as I head into, like, 2023 now, is how we look at, like, positivity. And what I mean by that is, like, so what you read about, you're listening to what Frank and I are talking about. You understand these concepts. And then you hear, like, new age, new thought, type of people out there saying, you got to stay positive. You got to stay positive. And I hear this all the time. And what kind of clicked for me personally this year when I was hearing all of this is the trick is not to stay positive. That, in fact, that can sometimes, bite you, because there's certain moments and certain things that happen in life and that unfold that you don't need to stay positive for. A better way.
What I like to do too when I get into discussions with people, how do we define positive?
Well, that's kind of where this is where I'm heading with that. So, positive is not what we've been told. Like, okay, I'm positive. I'm going to stay happy about this. My mother just passed, and this is happening, and I'm going to stay. It's kind of like, oh, dude, you sound a little fucking nuts.
Yeah, unless you hated your mom. It's like,
yeah, the true thing, and at least what I've seen and what's come from my heart and what I felt this year is it's not about staying positive. It's about staying loving, and it's about love is the answer. It's not the positive thing, because if you can stay loving in every moment, you will learn to appreciate and accept, like, full face, the situation at hand. You don't need to be positive about it. Sure, you can spin it into a direction that's going to serve you, but you need to be loving about that situation. Love is compassion. It's passion. There's all sorts of words that fall positive, that fall under the scope of love. And so if you can remain loving in every situation, that's true growth. And that's how I've been growing. And I'm reminding myself a lot as I go into this next year.
How do you remain loving in situations?
Number one, you have to accept everything as it is.
How do you accept it?
By understanding if you can't control it, you must accept it. And how do you accept it? I would say you let go of it. And how do you let go of something? You relax.
And also, too, it's getting back to what you started this with. We're storytellers. So think about the narrative and story you'll tell something. Because, okay, one of the things that people fear the most is not really necessarily the death of themselves, but a loved one. Maybe people do, but I often will think about somebody else dying before me. Sometimes I'm like, shit, I wish I was dead right now.
Seriously.
But I've never wished years ago I did, but I would never wish a loved one of mine dead right now.
No, totally.
Because when you think about that, all of a sudden, it does something to your heart, right? But we all know we're going to die. So when I start from the basis narrative that we came here to have an experience, and in that experience, everything is fleeting. If everything's fleeting, what am I attaching myself to? And I realize we're creating what we call bad or negative to something that is always fleeting, and you're trying to chase it. It's like you kind of keep chasing your tail, so to speak. But when you start with the narrative, well, everything's going to end. It doesn't mean you don't experience sorrow or the mourning process. The mourning process is a process of elevating up to a different level. I know everyone that has experienced some major loss has gained strength from that. Even if they went downhill. Like, oh, I lost my job. And I started drinking, and all of a sudden now they're talking about it, and got to a point where they overcame it. It's like if they get to a point where they admit, like, oh, losing my job, it wasn't my job. It was this overwhelming fear of loss. And then to distract myself, I started drinking. And then I realized, wow, there was nothing to be scared of. So that whole process, they learned something. I remember when I was a kid hearing that on the seventh day all was good. And I'm like, really? I'm like, define good. Because I was told a narrative, this happens. It's good if my team wins the game, but it wasn't so good if we lost. Why didn't it feel good? But all of a sudden I realized it wasn't the feeling, it was the ability to transmute the energy. Because after I lost the game, it wasn't like I walked around slumbered all day. It was probably like, the second, like, hey, let's go get some ice cream. Ice cream? Okay, let's go. And I didn't, when I was younger, I didn't harbor over things. When I got a little bit older, I did. Then I learned not to. But when I stopped harboring over things and these things happened, I'm like, wow, this is actually part of my story I would never change. I wouldn't purposely go in and lose a game. I wouldn't purposely trip and fall. It's almost like watching these soccer players. You ever watch? I don't know if they did when they played the World Cup, but whenever I watch these games, it is the funniest thing. A guy will come up, run, and hit the guy, like touch him, and he'll fall down like Mike Tyson punched him. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's waiting for the ref to throw the flag, and the ref's like, get off your ass. Then he gets up and starts running like he was never hurt before. Yep. So the over-exaggeration doesn't work. But there's a subtlety of understanding life. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I don't go forth and exaggerate. It's like, okay, Frank said if you're in pain, you'll grow. Give me that gun. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. I'm like, no. The struggle or the pain or the going to the dark is actually going in and deep. And like, instead of distracting yourself all day, because I can do that really good. I have a lot of things I could distract myself with. But it's the moments when I'm not feeling good and I could easily, jump in a cold shower, do a breathing technique, go to the gym. And all of a sudden, that feeling will buffer over. It doesn't take me too high.
This too shall pass.
Yeah, but if I actually sit with myself in that, it's amazing what I learn. I learn more, but I have to be willing to do it at that moment. Because,
But what are you doing right then? You're accepting it.
Yeah, well,
fully.
Yeah, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It really is scary because, like, jumping in a cold shower or ice bath.
But you're not naming it as bad anymore. You're not saying, I shouldn't feel this way. That's where a lot of us are at. We say, I shouldn't feel this way.
No, I have to face it. Like I'll ignore and face it. I'm like, why is this happening? And then I start doing this mental thing. Oh, because I ate that. I'm like, stop.
That's creating a story.
Stop. Why is this happening? I don't know. It could have been from a past life. Again, whether you believe in past lives or not, it's just not a narrative. But when I go there, because if it was from a past life, I can't mull it over like if I ate, if it was something worrying me, it's because I talked to this person yesterday. That I think I could change because I shouldn't have done that yesterday. But if it was from a past life, I like, what the hell? I have to throw my hands up on this one. So I tell the narrative of that. Whether you believe it's true or not, it's just so far out there that I have to let go of that story completely. And that becomes easy. And then I just sit there and I feel the pain. Okay, no big deal. I feel it, and all of a sudden, I'll just sit there and live with it, and I can feel it right here, right in my solar plexus, and then it pops. And 9 out of 10 times, tears come rolling down my eyes. It's one of the greatest feelings I've had. And what did I learn? I'm always good. I'm always good, even when I'm not, or when I think I'm not. When I'm negative, I'm always good. So I got this. It doesn't matter. I know how to respond when I'm feeling down. I know how to respond when I'm feeling good if I'm going into something. And I know this because when I go off to meet clients and do stuff, I could be upset, but all of a sudden something clicks in my head and they have no idea. Then I'm like, why don't I do this 100% of the time? Because you allow yourself not to do it when you're around Karen. She doesn't appreciate that, But why do I do that? I'm like, oh, it's a mental pattern. So, every loved one does this. Like, do you treat your friends like this? No. It's like, why you do it to me? Because you're always here. You're always here. But that's a poor excuse anyway. And I remember saying that one time. I told a story. I'm like, well, because you're always here. You'll always yell at the people you love because you have faith that they'll come back. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting narrative, but how is that working for you?
I used to tell myself the same bullshit
Yeah.
about like my parents or like my family or like my brother and stuff. Like I was always most I would respond and snap at those closest to me because in my
Mike,
head I would
look,
say
I just want to ask you. I've known Mike for a couple
long time.
years now. What does it look like when you snap?
Well-
You could probably pitch what it looks like for me because I get like like
I don't.
like,
Well,
I don't know what it looks like. I tell you, I'm just like what does it look like when Mike snaps? Like
I take that as a huge compliment, so thank you, because a lot of years of working on that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I guess like what I mean is like I would just be like whatever, like to those closest to me, because what I would say, my mental narrative was, oh, they know who I really am, so they know that this isn't how I really feel, and so I would actually like be okay with hurting those closest to me because I'm like, oh, you actually know me. You should know that I don't mean that, and things like that. And this is, and I would, especially like with my mom, when I would talk to her growing up, I knew that she was like always the one that was there for me. Yeah. And so like I felt like I could just like dump my garbage on her
until you realize she learned Taekwondo.
Yeah,
it's like, oh shit,
I had my ass handed to me. But I really, really changed that because I realized what I was doing is, number one, that was a story I was telling myself that these are the ones closest to me, so they really know me. Blah blah blah. No one deserves to be shit on ever. No. Number two, it's like, you focusing on, the negative, you playing into that role only pushes you more into that direction that you don't want to experience. So it's not until you literally cut the cord immediately and say, whoa, I don't need to feel this way.
Yeah, because you become a victim then. And no one wants to. Yeah.
And so you start to feel it coming up, and you start to see yourself, revert to an old past or something like that, and you stop it, and you go, whoa, I know what this is. I know I'm not that narrative. I know that I'm in control. I'm aware. I'm observing. I am speaking into life, my narrative. Abracadabra. Oh, wow. Yeah. What I speak, I create. I am creating, this negative environment. And so I would go, whoa. And I would stop it there. And I've been doing that now for the past, 4, almost 5 years, and it's awesome.
It's working, yeah. So do you walk around
I'm
saying
finally getting in
abracadabra?
control. Well, it's funny.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
The guy who the guy was
genie bottle.
Well, the guy who was telling me the story, he was saying like him and his wife will say that to each other. When it was a TED talk I was listening to this.
Oh,
guy.
really?
He was like, yeah. So when my wife or I, whenever we're getting caught up, we'll be like, yo, abracadabra,
Oh, really?
and like try to.
I'm gonna try with Karen. Hey, where's my coffee? Abracadabra. I'm sorry.
I would not try that. That is not going to pan out how you want, Frank.
I know.
But so I don't know. Like, I'm very aware of. Hey, I'm participating in the negativity, or I'm participating in something that's moving me in the direction I want to.
Yeah.
And that has been the biggest change for me, because when you can see that you're now seeing everything from above. You're getting out of. This is how I think, so this is what's going on. That's a very like animal, low level, low vibrational reaction. And the thing that makes us so special as humans is we have this neocortex. We have these different parts of our brain that allow us, to step outside of the character, the role, etc., and see the bigger picture, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is, I am a multidimensional being. I am not just Mike, the real estate agent, Mike, the son, Mike, the boyfriend, Mike, the this. These are all roles that I play.
Yeah.
And I can play these roles to the best of my ability, or use these roles to navigate life in a way that is most loving, and
experiential,
experiential and growing. There's something about growth. You don't begin to look at it as negative anymore, and that uncomfortable feeling you get from having to wake up in the morning or get out and go do that activity you've never done or speak in front of people, whatever. There's something about it where you look at it different and you're like, hey, I'm going to be stronger from this. There's no reason to fear this, and you start to push into goals. and move towards what you want to experience without all this head chatter of, oh, that probably won't work out. Oh, you're going to look stupid. Oh, this. You know what that head chatter is now, and you go, oh, whoa, that's not me. These 60 to 70,000 thoughts I have each day, that's not me. What's me is only what I choose to align with.
Yeah.
What do I choose to experience? And this is taking your power back, like, next level.
Yeah, and I think what happens too is we live on a planet right now, especially in the United States, where like when you look at all the experience you can have, most people can obtain them. So like, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to an understanding that, like, okay, the narrative or the experience you want to have, it's not about having the experience. It's about stepping back and disassociating from it, like a great actor does, right? A great actor realizes they're playing a role, so they take who they are out of the equation and they go into it. But they also know how to evaluate it from that point. But they don't get attached to it. This is why they can be great at it. If we get too close to it, like the understanding, if we get too close to like cutting the cord and step back of it, you're actually seeing, okay, how can I grow? Because every human being understands what growth is. But growth comes from tenacious or sometimes pushing down to make it stronger. So like in the winter, when the cold bears down on trees, they have to root, they have to survive. Well, so the next year when they actually grow higher because it's spring into summer and the leaves are creating a canopy that's heavy, those roots better be holding. But if it never had a struggle to make it stronger, those trees would topple over. That's why in Arizona you see a lot of trees topple over.
Totally.
It's because people overwater them.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a tree out in the desert that no one's landscaping. I'm like, that tree's, no one's taking care of that tree's there. It doesn't look as pretty as the one maybe in the yard, but all of a sudden these big trees topple over because they, especially if it's an indigenous tree in Arizona, if you water it too much, you make it too easy. And then it stays the roots to surface. So
all shallow, yeah.
Shallow. So when the wind comes, the canopy's so big it just blows it over. Rather than just don't ever water your tree again. Like, but I need to water my tree. I'm like, no, it's it's an indigenous tree. It knows it's in the desert. So the rainfall is enough for it.
Well, it's cool that you bring up trees too, because like
Christmas trees.
Christmas trees. No, but just like everything is alive and everything is going through growth, and you can start to see how you're related. Like that was a perfect example with the tree. Like, hey, these experiences that you are having that are perceived as negative or not the most preferential, they are needed experiences in life to grow, to help others, I don't know. There's like, we all want to live in this world of I only feel good and I feel comfortable.
That's the point I was trying to make. It's because in the world,
where's the yin yang? That's the world.
Yeah, instant gratification. There is nothing wrong with that in a momentarily, but the greatest gratification is the long term of putting in the work and coming to the end of seeing this. And I mean, like your life's work, like how, like on the last breath you take, how do you want to see your life? Yes, having a slice of pizza for the instant gratification of taste and overcoming, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's all you're living for, it becomes this addictive. And now they even say, like, when you're constantly going for instant gratifications, you release serotonin, and all of a sudden it dies out. You release it, so now you start to exhaust these glands, and you're to where it's no longer worth it. And all of a sudden life gets dull, or now we have to bring it exciting. Have to now do even heavier drugs or more drinking or more gambling, whatever it is, and it never ends. But that long-term investment in your life is so far deeper gratifying than eating that donut. I'm not saying don't eat the donut, but if you're going from donut to donut to donut, by the fifth donut, it's not working.
Yeah.
But when you constantly go steadfast in this discipline, whatever it may be, and you see the growth inch by inch by inch. There's a famous poem, and I don't know who wrote it, but it goes day by day by day by day. Nothing seemed to change. But when I turned back, everything was different. But instant gratification, psh, boom, psh, boom. So you see change. I drink coffee, I'm awake. But if you do a breathing exercise and jump into cold water, you're going to feel awake, but your serotonins go. And that's not that's not gratifying, jumping in cold water. Anyone I talk to, no one likes it.
No.
They love the result. But the pain. But everyone likes eating a donut. Everyone likes, and I'm using this. I'm not like getting bad on donuts here. You know, I'm going to get sued by the donut companies. But
Yeah, seriously.
nah, come on, sue me.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. I'll have the Ice Cube people behind me.
There you go.
But when we do this, so okay, if I know I jump in a cold shower, it's going to maintain my immune system all day. It's going to raise my serotonin at a level higher. I'm willing to place the discomfort now for that continuous gratifying understanding. Same thing with my money. I'll put my money away. Yeah, I can't spend it, but I know in my future it'll be sitting there, and then that money will be able to pay me, and I'll have the principal. But instant gratification, like I can go out and buy, a Porsche, like right now, and I'd rather take that money and invest it. I don't need the damn Porsche because after a month, the Porsche is just another car I've been driving.
Yep.
All right, it doesn't mean don't get the Porsche, but but if you're looking for gratification, that it will wear off. I don't care. Every car I've gotten, I loved, and then all of a sudden, now when I get a car, I'm like, okay, I like it. But now I learn to appreciate it every day, so I don't lose that. I don't lose that understanding of it. That becomes an investment, no longer spending, because people like to spend because it's instant gratification. But investing is long term, and everything you should do is investment. And all of a sudden, there is this, because when I'm investing here and doing this, but the investment I did years ago, I'm getting that gratification now. So you're always being in the grateful period. I'm always learning. It's like, wow, this is amazing. That's why like young kids today are always trying to get rich real quick. I'm like, all right, do it. You're going to lose it all, most likely. But that's fine. You can do it. But it's that long-term movement into it that save here now. And if you're starting out young and learn this, and learn to just constantly, you choose your words, how you feel. Like in other words, emotionally, okay, if I do the breathing technique, sit with my emotions. Say I'm feeling really bad. If I sit with that, that's not gratifying. But I know it's going to be gratifying in the future. Or I could go watch a TV show and get instant gratification, get over it, but then it's just going to arise later. Because once the show's over and like, oh shit, oh my God, there's not another episode?
Well, and explain
like,
what happens right there. So your consciousness was diverted by a show. So you're no longer distracted, thank you. No longer obsessed about the problem. You're now looking at a show. Let's say it's a show you like that you've always associated, oh, I love this, or it's something great, or whatever. And so what are you doing? You're getting on the frequency of that show, right? You're allowing yourself to be on a different frequency for that period of time. Then when the outside world's show ends, you're saying, oh, I got to tune back to the shittiness. Yeah. I got to go back to the previous thought because I use this to distract me from that. So it's a mental game. Sorry to I'm going to kind of jump tangent here, but this also is kind of clicked for me.
That's all I ever do is tangents.
Well, so what is nostalgia? Okay, right? We all know what nostalgia is. And right now, Christmas time is such a nostalgic time for me growing up. Christmas screams home. When I was growing up, or when I was on tour with my band, I was always home for Christmas. That was the only holiday we were always home for. Christmas has always been, a thing where
Did your band ever write a Christmas song?
No.
You should have.
I don't think we ever did.
I was thinking about that. If I was ever a musician, I would definitely do like a Christmas song because you get royalties every year.
Yeah, right. great point. But so so there's this level of nostalgia, right? And I've been thinking and contemplating on this. I'm like, okay, what is that? All nostalgia is you tuning to a frequency that you had previously loved. Or you're tuning back to a frequency that brings you happiness and joy. And we have this ability to do this at any time. Yeah. So what nostalgia is it's you saying, all right, I'm going to let go of the pain, the suffering, what I'm experiencing, because, this Home Alone movie reminds me of when I was a kid and I had no problems and life was perfect and great and I was with my family. What am I really doing? It's not the movie that's giving me this. It's me tuning my frequency where I'm allowing myself mentally, consciously to be, which is at peace in that moment of how great it felt to have no worries, etc. And we have the ability to do this at all times.
Yeah,
It's not just the nostalgia, but yet nostalgia, the reason we love certain things, certain foods and all this is it's just reminding us of that moment where you did let go. You were fully present. You knew nothing was wrong. We're putting these chains on ourselves.
Well,
we're holding ourselves down.
Yeah, you're trying to create the scenario in order to get that feeling back.
So nostalgia is just tuning. Well, you put on that movie that reminds you of Christmas time. You're tuning to the frequency of that.
Yeah, and you want to be able to do that without the association of the movie.
Well, that's it. You have to see that the outside world is just that.
Yeah.
You don't need the movie in order to tune to that frequency. You don't need Christmas to tune to that frequency.
No.
You don't need your parents' turkey and stuffing.
But actually, this like watching the movie. Me and Mike are not saying don't do that, but when you're conscious, when you watch the movie, notice how you feel, and then in that moment you notice how good you feel. Tell yourself it's not the movie. Doesn't mean to turn it off. And like I even went through this years ago. Like you're watching a TV series, and the series ends, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, it's over. Mm-hmm. And you start feeling this weird, bad feeling. And I'm like, how did a TV show that's just coming out of the pixels and sound out of a box take you down? Because you associated everything. You got completely involved in it. And when it ended, it was like a death. People do it. Like, I remember when Breaking Bad, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, I'm not saying don't watch TV or even watch Breaking Bad, but when you associate that much with it, you are owned by the physical world. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be owned by the physical world. You want to be owned and produced by the inner world. The inner world is really, truly all that exists.
Yeah.
But you're associating when that thing ends, then like, oh, don't worry, I can watch it again.
Well, and let's put that in perspective. So Frank just said the outside world doesn't really exist. And then we'll say, hey, what are you talking about? I can feel my body. I can feel this table, all this stuff around me, etc. Well, science, for somebody who's saying that, they will need supporting evidence, right?
Well, let's define what exists and what doesn't exist. And again, this is my definition. What exists can never change. What doesn't exist can always change. So there's an observer. Like when I look at a yearbook picture of me, I'm like, I do not look the same. Mm-hmm. And but there was something in that body that was in high school. Mm-hmm. That is in this body right now, observing it. That will never change. That will never diminish. That will never do anything. That's the truth. That's the real. Everything else is just an experience in outward, but it's always in forever fleeting. Yeah. Hey, you go to ancient Egyptian, right? You look at the pyramids. They're still standing, but they're tethered. Mm-hmm. They eventually will disappear unless they rebuild them, but they will. You look at the Colosseums in Rome. They're disappearing. Everything will disappear. If I even leave this table and do nothing, not even put a wind, eventually, I don't know how many thousand years it will take for this table to just disintegrate. It will. Mm-hmm. But the observer watching the table disintegrate will never die. That is the reality. That is truth.
Well, very well said. But like what I'll remind myself is like when I'm thinking like, oh, the outside world isn't real or this isn't real. So there's this this is like a scientific fact for you. So you can take all the matter. What's matter? Physical world, right? Physical. And I'm taking the entire matter, all of the world, and you can fit it inside a sugar cube. And so what does that mean? Okay, so that means we're all space. Everything in between us, we're 90. If I can move fast enough, I could put my hand inside of Frank's chest and pull it out. And this is science, guys. This is a scientific fact.
Mike's a martial arts and kung fu.
Yeah, we are vibrating, atoms, particles, etc. But we experience them as real. We experience this table. What do you mean I can fit the entire world in a sugar cube? Well, science has proven that's true. We're not made out of matter.
Yeah, you ever see
we
Horton Knows
experience
Who?
Matter. Say that again.
Horton Knows Who?
No. What's that?
It's a Dr. Seuss story.
Okay.
and it's based on this world that thing like it was going to disappear, and then you realize I forgot what kind of animal it was. The people that were in this world were living on the top of a dandelion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you couldn't even see the people, but it was a small dandelion, and because whoever, like, it was an animal carrying it, they worry about it being disruptive. So if you look at the Earth and us living on it, we're like a grain of sand to the universe.
Oh, absolutely.
So is there matter, or do we define matter as this frequency vibrating, and it's just all it is electromagnetic field we can't pass through. So therefore, even the cube itself is empty.
Well, that's where science is.
Yeah. So what is real? The ability to generate the energy.
Correct.
And you'll never know that. People are like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can't. It's just like you can't. Your eyes can't see your eyes. Your tongue can't taste itself. Your teeth cannot bite the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, wow. So we're here to just experience and project outwardly. You can waste your time trying to get your tongue, trying to get this finger to touch the tip of this finger.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Try it. While you're doing that, you learn a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
One, wasting my time.
Yep.
The other is I can't do it. But the other is, why do you need to do it? The things you need to do to experience life, you're already doing. You have the capacity to do it. And again, I get setting limits because people are like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, wait a minute. People are doing that, you know? But no scientist, not even Jesus, can explain God, can refer to God, could point towards God, but can never explain that in which God is. What is God? I'm like, I don't know. We'll be sitting there talking about it. Does it matter? What are the principles that God, the universe, gave us? Oh, those seem to be real when you follow them. And it's the underlining. It's all energy. How I feel about something, how I perceive something, will make it into what we call hard and fact. So all hard and fact is perception. You know, a lot of scientists, there is a scientific method that is part of that principle, but the findings themselves will always change. It will always change. And the scientists like, that's not, well, then your job is over. How come you haven't discovered everything? The process itself is real. The scientific process is brilliant. It's real. It's something you follow. You'll find correlations, but not the true essence of causation. And that's the life. Because, hey, I don't want this story to end. The end. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's over. No, it's not. I still got more to say. I still got more experience. So trying to find the end or getting lost in the process is the most brilliant thing. So a scientist gets lost in the process of science, and along the way can help people have an easier life, a better life. But sometimes if we make people's lives too easy, it destroys them. So there's always a yin and yang. And why does the easy life destroy people? One reason only. They're not conscious. It had nothing to do with watching Breaking Bad. It had nothing to do with the shooter games. It had to do with consciousness. And when we remain conscious, we see it for what it is. But when we're unconscious, oh my God. And then they run from the boogeyman into the traffic and get hit by the bus. And, you know, their last breath is like, I knew it would kill me. I'm like, no, you ran in front of a bus. That's what killed you. You know, something's going to happen. I'm worrying. Now cancer got me. I'm like, you're worrying. You know, you created this dysfunction in the body. Like I heard someone recently just say, I forgot the guy's name, but he's like a shaman. And he'll probably get a lot of feedback from this, but I'm just saying this way. There really isn't any such thing as a disease, only symptoms. Mm-hmm. A disease or a disease will create the symptom. And guess what? We will look at it and not know what it is, but we'll label it. And how do I know this? Well, autoimmune disease. No doctor can explain to me why it is. They find ways to relieve the symptoms through chemicals and stuff like that. And now they realize, how do we relieve the symptoms? Well, stop meditating. Do energy work. Because it all becomes mental. Because a doctor can't say, oh, yeah, you have autoimmune disease. They'll ask, what are your symptoms? I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. Autoimmune disease is like, it's huge. It's broad. Mm-hmm. Like when someone breaks a bone, you can see they break a bone. but the doctor can't show you. The doctor has nothing to do with healing it.
Mm-hmm.
They might set it so it heals in a way, whatever, but the healing takes on itself. It's another field of energy.
Mm-hmm.
We are the doctor. We are the medicine. And we come to understand that. But doctors and scientists that study the lineage or the understanding of how to do a scientific study will help us understand that. So it's not about disassociating or disfranchising that. It's that system is perfect. But we're coming back around to realize it's in us. And what doctors now are telling people, like, well, take it easy, relax, breathe, meditate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I know when you meditate, you heal better. Well, maybe that's the answer all along, not the pill. But hey, if you need to take the pill to calm you down at this stage of the game, do it. But then when you take the pill, become conscious. Oh, how I feel good. How did the pill make me feel good? Well, you allowed it. Okay. Next time, take half the pill. Do some other things. Because, hey, even my breathing techniques, even the technique of me sitting down with myself is still a placebo. It's still a permission slip. I understand that. But if I didn't have any permission slips, I would have no experiences. So I'm willing to do them. Going in the cold water it's a permission slip.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. But it's one that I'm never going to get comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so it makes me alert. So sometimes when I get unconscious, I need to become alert. So consciousness, whatever permission slip I need to become conscious, do it. But that's not the end. You got to keep doing it over and over. It's the investment of life, investment into my conscious state. And, the average person, they say, has 5% of consciousness, where 95 isn't. Okay.
Yeah, 95% of our day is ruled by our unconscious
So
mind.
if I say I'm on the upper swing and I have like 6% of consciousness, well, in that 6% of consciousness, I want to create what I call, for me, a good habitual subconscious. All right? So I want to program my subconscious to where it's running. But, hey, even over time, that subconscious is going to become boring, and that boring becomes to drag down. So this is why people will do things uncomfortable every day. It's because it makes you conscious. You don't just unconsciously walk into a cold shower. You don't unconsciously go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
You don't unconsciously, but you can unconsciously drive a truck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary. You can unconsciously do your job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put, no one that's going to climb a mountain, like scale a mountain, can unconsciously do that.
Mm-hmm.
They have to stay focused. So this is why we create these great disciplines. And guess what? I have to keep advancing my discipline in order to stay conscious. Because, yeah, I could go in a cold shower for easy 5 minutes and I have to go, same thing with ice bath. So I have to up it to 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because now I'm like, fuck, I know I could go 5, but 6, holy shit, it's another minute. Well, now I'm conscious,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still willing to do it. So I'm always setting another conscious state. And I can't measure how often I'm conscious. Maybe Karen can. It might be around 2% of the time. But I don't know if it's 90%. But I know when I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I'm like, that's an unconscious statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unconscious statement. It's a habit. How do you know you're tired? How do you know you're tired?
Mm-hmm.
Because I said so? No. Go, do this cold shower, whatever it is you do, or sit with yourself and breathe. Also, no, I changed. I'm like, well, therefore, when I said I was tired, that is a lie. I can make it into a truth. I can defend it as a truth, but it really is ultimately a lie. It's just a state that you decided to say, I'm tired. Okay, you're tired. So what? What does that mean?
We choose our state.
You don't have to go to work. I'm like, if you don't want to go to work, change your job. Stop saying I'm tired. Mm-hmm. No one's going to buy into it anyway. I'm tired. I'm like, oh, I don't give a shit.
One other thing that I want us to touch on too is, and you were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the kind of the moving of the ball each day. So this last year has been my most consistent year. And what I mean by that is day in, day out, I was implementing this type of work, whether that's, breath work and meditation in the morning, etc., goal setting, all of that. It was a consistent day in, day out effort. And there are some days that are so brutal. Some days that you're just like, oh my God, like the world is just coming down on me. And you feel that, but it's you recognize and say, hey, look, I know it feels this way, but where can I find the lesson in this? Where can I change where can I change the scenario? How can I flip the script on this? So this is working in my favor, working towards my goals. And I know that's difficult during those really hard days, but it's staying consistent is when you see the most growth. And Frank was talking about this with, like, you may not see it day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, but my God, when you look back at that year, you're like, oh my God, you see all of this change. So consistency is super important. And that's like going back to what we kind of started this conversation with. It gets so easy come the end of the year to check out and say, oh, I'm going to push this off into the next year.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll work on myself next year. I'll work on myself at the top of the year. It's my New Year's resolution. I'll work on my goals then. But that day doesn't come, and it all starts now. And so, like, the consistency is probably one thing for me personally that really allowed me to elevate my frequency, elevate my vibration. And it feels great. It really does, because you are the one who knows if you could have done more. You're the one inside that knows. And the people, we know this every time we give up on our New Year's resolution or stop. We know we could have kept going. We know that, it wasn't that bad. We just come up with an excuse for the head, for the thoughts to narrate. And we need a mental story so we don't feel bad about it. Oh, this happened, oh, I got crazy busy at work. Oh, this. But deep down, we know that we could have done more. I know this because I was there.
Yeah, but also know too, like, 'cause I remember years ago listening to people that are in positions like Mike and I talking to an audience, and the assumption is every day of their life is great, and that's not true. I'm like, and so part of the consistency is allowing the rainy days to come. Yep. It's accepting them. Don't, when it's rainy out, don't try to think oh, I'm happy today. I'm like, stop that. This is nutty.
But you can be loving that day.
Yeah, you can be loving. But the way you're loving to yourself, you have to love to yourself. You know this. You can't love another human being. You can only express love to another human being. You have to love yourself. And if you're saying, get off your ass and go to the gym, you're not loving yourself. You're not. And then you're going to be miserable to everybody else. So the only person you can really love is yourself, and then you can express love to other human beings, which is loving other people in that case. So when you're feeling down, is it like, okay, I'm learning something. Okay, when you're learning something, you have to stop and take note. It's not the time to run off into the playground. What am I learning here? Become conscious. Because when sometimes when you are tired, it can bring on a conscious state. And, oh, I'm tired because I worked too hard. I'm like, is that the narrative you want to tell yourself? I'm tired just because it's a season of being tired. All right? Because what's going to happen is if I say I'm tired because I'm working too much, I'm going to start to hate work. I don't want to hate work. But yet, if I just say I'm tired because it's the season, it's the winter. Oh, this is what happens in the winter. And when you accept the winter, you go skiing, so to speak. You have fun. How do I have fun in every season? But I don't try to go swimming in the ocean unless I'm doing a polar bear thing in the winter. No, but when I go swimming in the ocean in the summer, it's enjoyable. In the winter, not. But there becomes this joy of winter. There's something in the winter that I great joy from. So I've learned I don't like one season over the other. I used to. I don't anymore. Every season has its value. Mm-hmm. And that's the consistency me and Mike are talking about. Not try to make summer every fucking day. That's just ridiculous. And we were talking about when Mike was talking about we were talking about this earlier about why is it this time of year we all feel good?
Yeah.
All right. There's this collective energy. All right. Well, it's a fractal. I'm like, start to look at your whole life of seasons, right? And then right now everyone's listening is a part. You're not at the winter of your season, or maybe you're coming upon it, right? I listened. There's a video about Morgan Freeman. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. He's 8. He's like, I'm 86 years old. I'm at the. He didn't use the word winter, but I'm going to use it. The winter of my life, and I have $1 million in the bank, but that's not going to stop me from leaving. And I have family that I love and all this stuff. And it's just kind of spending time. And what he's doing, he's not like, oh, I'm leaving. He's like, I want to leave you with something. And what he's leaving you with is, know this, it ends. So do everything you can in this moment to enjoy it. Even when you're tired, even when you're sick, you can enjoy life. You can enjoy what's the body doing with the disease right now. You could sit there and instead of fighting cancer, become one with it. The goal isn't to overcome a disease. The goal is to become peace with everything. When you become the peace with everything, you're successful in life. So we're trying to overcome poverty. If you're in a poverty state, become okay with it. And when you become okay with poverty, all of a sudden, this weird thing happens. You're no longer impoverished. It's an illusion. And all of a sudden, you start to invest your time. You start to invest your money willingly and easily. And all of a sudden, you're out of the place in which you're at. When you actually come one with and accept the disease, the symptoms no longer have hold on you. Yeah, we're all going to die from the physical corporeal body in which I'm in. I know that. Something's going to get me. But till the moment I'm sitting here right now making this statement, till the moment in which I take my last breath, I'm going to remain as peaceful as I can. So whether a doctor gives me a 6-month prognosis or in my head I'm going to live to 100, it's all the same. Explain 6 months to me and explain 50 years to me. Do it right now. You can't. It's impossible. But peace I can explain. I can remain peace. And this is, to me, the ultimate goal. It's to accept life. But in accepting life, you want to grow and expand in a direction. Because accepting life isn't giving up. It's the opposite. Not accepting life is giving up. Not accepting it is going to put you in the ground, stick your head in the sand. Don't. No, accept everything and watch what happens. Because if you remain in this state, the universe will yield to you what it is you want, but you don't think you need to detour. I'm like, yes, you do. Why did it take so long? Because you need to learn the lesson. I'm going to use a value here of money. Why did it take me so long to become a millionaire? The reason is if I became a millionaire in my 20s, I would have blew it all. I would have had hookers and God knows what I had. Now it's like I have no purpose for that. And all of a sudden now being a millionaire is not a big deal. It's not. It's almost like, okay, now what am I going to do with that? So the long drawn out thing, everyone thinks they want to win the lottery, but over 60% of people that do lose it and they become in debt. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying don't buy the lottery ticket. I'm not saying that. But if you're going to buy the lottery ticket, start studying finances. It's easy to put $2 down and buy a ticket. But if you buy a ticket at the same time you stop studying finances, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, there's an investment. You may not win the lottery, but guess what? Your economic situation will change. It will have to change. And when you accept that, I'm not saying force it, go for it, I have to do it. Just do it. If you just put on a video about economics, you put on a video about health, a 10-minute video. You know more than you did yesterday. And watching the video that excites you, that's the investment. It's the excitement. Okay, well, now the excitement gets me enough energy to go forth and enact it. And the enacted is the investment. And stop having insistence on how it works out. No one knows. Nobody knows that. But they recognize growth. We all recognize growth, and we recognize failure. And failure actually be transmuted into growth if you look at it properly. So that is the goal. And so if you break down your lifetime, then we were telling Mike, I'm like, we look at, the 12 months of a year. So you start off, that's why January is always like, okay, we set goals because like we got to get going because Christmas just ended and we're miserable. Mm-hmm. And you set the goals and then spring comes. So you start forgetting about it because the sun came out and the tulips are, But that's too long to wait for Christmas. So me and Mike were talking earlier and I'm like, what if you looked at every day as a year? When you wake up in the morning, it's January 1st. You set your goal. All right, you do it, you implement it. By noon, it's summertime, you're enjoying it. And before you go to bed, it's Christmas time. What I mean is you're evaluating what you did and you praise the gifts in which you got. And then you fall asleep into the slumber and you die. Then you wake up again and do it over again. It's so much easier to control than your fucking 12 months a year. Mm-hmm. That is depressing. But if I could break my day down, if I could break my minute down into the year, So in the morning, like I said, I get out of bed. It's like it's January. It's like shit. I got to do my. No one wakes up like. There are days I wake up like like clicking heels, but a lot of times getting out of bed, I'm trying to push off the tire. I just woke up.
Totally.
So I have a couple techniques to do that. I just do it because I know when I do it, the time, 5 minutes later, I'm wide awake, right? And then all of a sudden, bam, it starts. Okay, let's do this. Now the motivation's coming. All of a sudden by midday, you're feeling great. And I keep going. And all of a sudden, by the evening time comes and things are wrapping up, all of a sudden now I'm evaluating, okay. And then when the night comes, I'm sitting there. And right before I fall asleep, I open the gifts, and I'm grateful for the gifts I learned that day. And then off to sleep. So if you could wrap your whole year in one day, you'll live an amazing life. Rather than like, oh, shit. Oh, I got plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
But in a day, you don't have plenty of time. You're going to do that. And that's how I look at it.
That's a great analogy. Because if anything, we all can understand that, life is a fractal. Everything in life is fractals. It's how our vision works. It's how, everything works. Yeah. And so to be able to look at each day like that is a good way to mentally break it down into digestible or, ways to increase the preferences that we do want to see in life.
Yeah.
Our more preferential experiences. We can, I guess like when certain things come up that would normally set us off or, upset us, we look at it a little bit differently. It's more of a response rather than a reaction. And it's from there that you are like truly coming into yourself and who you are and the creator you can and always have been.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And it is. And the more I contemplate this idea, you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know if you're going to live till next Christmas. Mm-hmm. So if your idea is I'm not going to be happy till Christmas, you're going to die unhappy. Mm-hmm. But you can easily say I'm going to make it through the day, but that's not even guaranteed. So like if you take the day and continue to do this in the hour, break it down. When you so break it down into the hour, into the minute, you become present. But I'm not present if I have till January to buy somebody a gift. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I got till this afternoon. You got to do it now. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you're actually doing it. You're not talking about it. You're not just, haphazardly thinking about it. You're actually doing it. And that's the present way of living. And in the present way of living, like the poem I said earlier, day by day by day by day, nothing seems to change, but when I look back, everything was different. That is the life you want to end up with. Not the ups and downs of, waiting till Friday to get drunk and party. Yeah. And then Saturday comes like, oh, shit. That is going to rip you apart. The time you're into a certain age doing that, it's just like dreadful. Mm-hmm. Dreadful. But these other principles, other ways of doing it, just keep going forward and see what you discover. You're going to get moments and times where you feel high joy, but that's not the goal. The goal is to be present, and in present you're in love. Love has many different levels of frequencies of happiness and joy and sadness, but sadness does not eliminate love. Love is an all-encompassing field of energy, and we misunderstand it. Like on the seventh day, all was good. Now I understand what was meant by that from a metaphoric understanding. It's all good. But me pushing it away isn't going to make it better. It's not. The more I avoid life, and I still avoid things, it's like, oh, shit, I got to deal with this now. Oh, God. Mm-hmm. But I know what's going to happen if I don't. It's just going to grow. And then I deal with it. I'm like, okay. And what happens is, neuroscientists will tell you this. When I start to deal with things I felt uncomfortable in the past dealing with, my neuroplasticity changes, making it easier for the next thing to deal with. Why not? That's an investment into my future. So doing things you're uncomfortable with, slightly uncomfortable, do not try to kill yourself. If you've never hiked before, do not do Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. All right? I always tell people, shoot for the stars. If you get the moon, amazing. Mm-hmm. All right? So if you want to run a marathon, all right, run to the mailbox. unless your mailbox, like back in New York, my mailbox is on my porch. So out here in Arizona, we have banks of mailboxes. But you know what I'm saying. Run to the end of your block and then walk back. Next day, run to the end of the block and run. And maybe you never make it to the marathon. Maybe you make it to 2 miles, but you discover something about yourself, and that leads you into another direction. That's how it is. But if you don't let go, and if running the marathon is the point, go for it. But understand that you can do this. You did it. You ran 1 mile. You can run 2 miles. You keep going. All of a sudden, it's the physical acting of the thought that creates the neuroplasticity. That this will evade, and the scientists now are saying that doing all these word puzzles and things on the computer do not help ward off Alzheimer's and dementia. Mm-hmm. It's the acting of a thought, something new, doing something physically you've never done before. Place yourself in somewhat of an awkward, discomforting place. Fires new neural pathways, makes the brain more plasticity, and all of a sudden there's new. You're firing up, and all of a sudden it's giving signals to the body. Oh my God, we're doing something new. All hands on deck. Hormones come out, everything changes, and we start to live longer. People that are 100 years old are 100 years old not because they were sitting in a rocking chair, because they did stuff, and it wasn't like they had to, they didn't hike Mount Everest. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you're hiking Mount Everest, it means you're called to do it. But when I watch someone hike Mount Everest, I get excited. I might write a book or do some other type of activity with that energy. It's like, because if I think I have to hike Mount Everest to feel the way I'm feeling watching that person, it's defeative, right?
That's the outside world, not the inside world.
Yeah, that I wasn't called to watch that to then, because if like I can't do that, all of a sudden I start feeling bad. I'm like, oh, I wish I could hike Mount Everest. I'm like, no, you don't. You wish you had the goal in which the person that hiked Mount Everest had, but utilize it this way. And we use what? Just run to the end of the block. The person hiking Mount Everest and you making a huge feat to run to the end of the block are the same to the human psyche. It's the same. Because guess what? The guy hiked Mount Everest. Now what? I'm going to do it quicker. Because there's no other higher mountain. But, we'll have to do something else. I remember the guy, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he went to right outside the atmosphere and was dropped. And he parachuted. So he had to have a spacesuit on.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, from what I understand, he doesn't jump out of airplanes ever again. Why? He was, you can't go higher than that. Because if you go outside the atmosphere, you don't need a parachute. You're floating. So he was right at the point where gravity still had a pull on him, and then he was dropped, the highest point.
Really?
Yeah, he had to wear a spacesuit and everything. But then he's like, yeah, why do that? I'm going to do something else. Because there's nowhere else to go, Maybe he could still do it and have different nuances. That's, again, I heard that he claimed he wasn't going to do it again. But the point I'm trying to make is always move it. And okay, if you feel that's the furthest you can go with that event, fine. Well, take that energy and use that as a catalyst to go again on something else. Still use that. It's not like you're starting over, because it's the neuroplasticity we're looking for. It's that nuance in life that we get excited about, not the act. It's not the climbing the Mount Everest. It's not. But something had to change in order for me to do that. So I do that. But it wasn't that. It was the steadfast focus, the expansion, understanding what growth is. That is the nuance of life. And it doesn't mean you have to achieve what people think are huge things. You don't.
You don't.
It's simple. It's a lot simpler than that. But yet, it could seem complicated too at times.
Well, that's part of how the mind works. When we're pumping and churning, we make things huge deals. We make small thing or big things small deals. We have the ability to look at it any way we want. Yeah. So it's how can we get control of that? How can we become aware of that? And what can we do to begin moving in the direction to experience the world that we have the ability to create? Yeah.
So pretty much my New Year's resolution this year is going to be remain a little more conscious than I was yesterday or last year. And let's see how that works.
I love it.
Yeah.
My resolution is going to be probably to move into fear. You
Yeah.
know, that's
Well,
that's a big thing for
if
me.
you set a goal, like, and that's why, so let me back up here. So when I say become conscious, is I have to set a goal of something out in the physical world I haven't done. That's moving me into fear
Yeah.
because it's so much easier to continue what I'm doing.
But like we all think like, oh, we just want to get to this comfortable place where we're no longer growing and we just have millions of dollars. But we don't think like millions of dollars, money has to stay moving. Money needs to be
Current.
invested.
Yeah.
It's a current. But when you have millions of dollars, you got lots of different bills. There's different stuff going on. There's people asking you. So this idea that you just get to this certain point and get to relax, it's not true.
See,
I know this isn't true.
No.
And so when you
Yeah.
get there, it's a new level of growth.
Well, you are relaxed. Like I was just watching. I didn't finish it. There's a documentary on, I think, in Netflix about Richard Branson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, here's a dude that did everything right in his life. You know, started out with a magazine and then a record company and then an airline company, and now he's going to space. And the video begins. I don't know how old he is. You know, he's sitting there presenting himself, and he's in his house, and he's pretty much saying goodbye to his family because he's heading into outer space and he might not make it back.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to get choked up. Here's a dude that's done everything, but he doesn't stop doing it. And he's amazing. You know, he has dyslexia.
Yeah.
He can't read.
I didn't know that.
The guy's like, why would a person that can't read well start a magazine? He goes, I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy, right? But he never let anything stop him. And when I watch him and I see the excitement, here's a guy that has done it all from the physical world and just this master, but he's a kind human being, but that child in him never left. That's the thing that is real. So when Jesus said, become childlike, that is the only truth we have, is a childlike state. What's a childlike state? Child doesn't know enough to have fear. Doesn't know enough. Oh, I know too much. I'm like, that's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough, but I want to know more and experience. I want to see how this, okay, I have a sword. I'm going to go fight and I'm going to knock down some tall grass. And now I'm going to fight some samurai. I want to see. It's still the sword, but I want to see where I can take the sword. I want to see how well I'm wielding the sword. Yeah, first you're going to take the sword and try to cut a cantaloupe or a watermelon open.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, and I'm not here advocating violence.
To wield any swords.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's just take it down to the fruit. So I start with a watermelon, then I go cantaloupe. Now I'm doing a grape. And now I'm doing a what do you call it? A raisin.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's like, because the watermelon gets boring after a while. And then eventually I have to find something that I'm going to split the atom with the freaking sword.
Mm-hmm.
See it blow.
Seriously.
Guy's good.
It's great.
But someone's always trying to wield it little greater than they did the day before. And that's what even the least among you can do, as if I've done it even greater. That statement still lives today. And that statement is you saying it to yourself. All the concepts and ideas you have of yourself, even you, my concept, can, even the least among you, the worst concept I have of myself,
Mm-hmm.
can do greater than I have done. And the reason being is I'm not done. I can keep doing it greater. So take that statement that Jesus made and put it onto yourself. You are the one speaking it. It's not something out there, concept out there. It's you. You are that. You are the Christ in your body. So stop putting it out there and these statements, what Jesus said. I'm like, no, you are that. Live by it. So tomorrow I'm going to do it greater than I did. I'm going to trip and fall. So who cares? Get up. I've never been there, so why shouldn't I trip and fall? Mm-hmm. But I know how to get up. I've tripped and fallen many times. I fell out of a tree, for the love of God. I once jumped off my house. I'll never forget that. Yeah.
How'd that end up?
Not good. Me and my buddies were in the backyard. It was fall, and we raked these leaves up, and there was it was very dry.
Yeah.
And we piled them up right near the so in my backyard we had the patio, but the rooftop came down to it. So the rooftop maybe 10 feet from the ground. So it wasn't like
nothing crazy.
bad. Yeah. So I had this wild idea if I go in and I took this big beach blanket, towel and I wrapped it around my neck and pinned it. Like I took safety pins, pinned to my pants. And I thought if I jump out like a belly flop, it would gain some wind and it would slow me down to the ground, right? Obviously.
Holy shit, Frank.
Yeah, I wasn't the smartest kid. But, you know, I was willing to do it. But we piled the leaves up so high that the differential between the roof and the leaves were like 5 feet. Not that big a deal. Well, I learned about air induction that day. And when I jumped, the wind blew down the leaves and they split like the freaking Red Sea. And I freaking hit the ground. Boom! And yeah. What was funny is my mom was in the house and she comes running out because she heard across the roof, like, what the hell's going on? The time she was running out, I remember, like, my peripheral, I see my mom running and I'm still in midair and I hit boom. And I'm like, all of a sudden she's yelling at me, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
knocked all the way down.
My friends are all staring at me. All of a sudden, God, and my mom's like, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, I didn't know it was going to happen. The leaves literally just...
Yep, because that wind came on top.
So the next time I did it, I
wetted those leaves down.
I made sure we glued the leaves together.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
But, hey, you were being childlike, and that's it.
I learned
You
something.
were moving into the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be doing on a daily basis, is moving into the unknown.
Yeah.
All right? I understand this is where I want to be. I understand and accept where I am at. But, I know what I have the capability of doing.
And if you're conscious, you are safe.
Yep.
If you're unconscious, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So don't throw caution to the wind. Do not make it so radical that you're throwing caution to the wind. If you're investing money, invest the money you can lose.
Yep.
All right? If you could only run a mile and a tenth. Like, run just a little bit more. Like, and that will actually open up, because if you run a mile and run like a mile and a quarter, all of a sudden the brain's like, oh shit, you've never done this before. It opens up. That's the whole idea here. You'll be safe that way. But if you try to run a marathon after only running a mile, you're going to defeat yourself. You may do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but if it's too overwhelming, run the mile and quarter. And if you set out to run a mile and quarter, you run 2 miles, hey, that's great. You know, after a mile and quarter, you might keep going. Keep going. You change the fabric. When you change the neuroplasticity in your brain, guess what else you change?
The trajectory. Also
the energy field of the universe. We add to it. The more we put out there in the universe of excitement, the more radiating excitement comes to those who haven't felt it in a while. So, getting back to, I do things for other people which help myself. When I do something great for myself, it actually helps everyone around the world. Think about this. We know this with famous people. You know, you hear famous people that was poor and, you know, things happened to them and they made it this way. All of a sudden, the poor kid's like, damn, if he can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we do it. Not to brag, but hey, you know, Richard Branson, he had dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a multi-billionaire and he's happy as hell, and I don't know how old he is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could look it up right now, but you get the gist of it. This is why we do it. So you become the person that's going to elevate this energy. Become the change in which you want to see. So if you're out there as an activist, stop doing that. Become the change. Inspire people. Don't make people feel bad because they're doing something you don't think they should be doing. Inspire them to do what you think they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yelling at people doesn't inspire people. So become that change. And this is, you know, don't wait for January. Do it right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the most amazing thing, you know. And I'll see what happens next year.
Well, 2022 has been a great year, guys. It has been. Thank you to everybody who's been listening into our show. Frank and I really, truly appreciate it. You know, we do this show. I once heard somebody say, you know, if you want to learn something, teach it. And so when Frank and I kind of decided to do this podcast back in 2020, even a little bit before that, you know, we dove head first in.
Yeah,
why? Because these are our daily practices. Yeah. What we're sharing with you, what these teachers are sharing, this is what Frank and I are doing day in, day out. So thank you, each of you at home, sharing this with us. We're growing with you.
Yeah.
We're putting these things, ideas, these practices, these techniques, all this into play, and we're glad that we have you guys to share it with, and it's cool because we learn from the questions that are sent in. We learn by the hey, have you guys heard of this teacher, or have you heard of this spiritual check this person out. We get so many cool interactive messages from those at home. So thank you for sharing this journey with Frank and I in 2022.
Yeah. And even for those out there that were thinking about sharing and stuff, go do it, because the act of sharing, and I don't mean just on our podcast, anyone's podcast, when you enact putting something out there, writing about yourself, it actually puts it out into the universe, even more solid. So it'd be nice to do it on Perspective Shift, but you could do it on anything. Just write it out. Even if you're doing it in your house and just write it on a piece of paper. There's something when you actually have a feeling, and then the action of something doing actually solidifies it more deeply into the body. And these principles actually do work. And if you follow them, they work. And that's, me and Mike here are just working out on air, and we know we need you guys to keep listening. So this podcast, Perspective Shift, it's not just about me and Mike. It's about everyone.
It is.
And even the people that aren't listening, It's about changing the world, making it feel better, putting the horse in front of the cart, so to speak, and having the greatest experience you can have, even when you're miserable.
Life was meant to flow.
Yeah.
We're the ones that get caught up in it. We're the one that dam it up and stop the flow. So when you can let go and you can really dive into this unknown experience, man, watch this river you call life just begin to flow. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. So for the new year, me and Mike challenge you, just change your perspective slightly and see what happens. Yeah.
And we look forward to spending 2023 with you guys.
Yeah, we do. All right. Well,
have a great year,
We'll
guys.
have another podcast before then.
We will.
Yeah, but we care.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe at the link below. We also have an email that you can reach out to if you want to comment below on our videos. That works great. Or reach us at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com.
DM us on the Instagram.
Yeah, good point.
I know a lot of people on Instagram, so
you
do that.
At Perspective Shift now.
All right. Take out. Peace
Thanks,
out,
guys.
people.
See you
Thanks.
soon.